Hi guys, so my name is Mike with Northeast Precision. This is my YouTube channel. I'm going to try to do some gear reviews for you guys, gun reviews as frequently as I can, and we'll see how things go from there. Try to get into some budget-based gear. I don't want to do too much of the cheap stuff, but budget-minded. It's kind of a gray area to begin with, but my background, I am active duty. Not going to get into that at the moment. I will say that that doesn't really improve or decline my firearms expertise. Most of my shooting training is on my own land, with my own ammo, with my own guns. So I work with Swamp Yankee Arms in Jewett City, Connecticut. So we are up here in Connecticut with the wonderful, super bipolar New England weather. It has rained for the last 4 days of trying to do this review. Today it is in the mid-20s and it is supposed to snow today. So bipolar weather. We had dense fog yesterday to the point that I had to stop shooting because I couldn't actually see the target at 100 yards. Been pretty wet, gross, misty, rainy, foggy weather for the last 4 or 5 days. I also got sick in the middle of it, so I had to take about a 2-day pause. The owner of Swamp Yankee Arms is my brother-in-law, Zach. He started the company a year or two ago. We started a storefront about a year ago. Come see us with all of your AR, firearm, hunting, all those needs. We're pretty big into ARs, but we do handguns and rifles just the same. So I am not being paid for this review. I just want to review products because I enjoy doing this. That being said, I did not pay for the scope. This guy, the Sig Tango-MSR, came from Swamp Yankee Arms. The rifle you see on it right now is my Scar 17S. This was paid for with my own hard-earned cash, as with all of my other firearms that weren't given to me as gifts by family members or whatever. But today we're going to get into the Tango-MSR. LPVOs are low-power variable optics. They are essentially scopes that typically come anywhere from 1 to 4, 1 to 6, 1 to 8, or 1 to 10 power. There aren't very many 1 to 10s on the market. There's getting to be more and more 1 to 8s. 1 to 6s have kind of become the most popular magnification range for an LPVO. There's a ton of different ones on the market, everywhere from Hawk, like this guy right here, to Vortex, to Night Force if you're going to spend a ton of money. Sig has the Tango 6T, which is, off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure, but should be in the price range around $1,500. And that's already putting some scopes out of people's budgets. Typically, if most people, and you could again be anywhere from $300 to $3,000, but a typical AR build going around $1,000 to $1,500, a lot of people aren't going to see the market for, why do I need to spend $1,000 on a scope if my whole gun's only worth $1,000? So, you know, so that kind of is where the market for the more budget price stuff is. Typically, your most popular competition for the Tango-MSR is going to be the primary arms optics. The primary arms have a decent warranty now. Just this year, they bumped it up to a lifetime warranty, as far as I know. So that being said, the Tango-MSR is going to have the SIG's Infinite Guarantee, which is a lifetime warranty, no receipt required, fully transferable for the mechanical workings of the scope. That being said, there is a 5-year warranty on the electronics, and they also say for tritium, I don't believe there's any tritium in the scope, so that doesn't really apply, but electronics and tritium, so that should be for most of their optics nowadays. But like I said, you're going to get that infinite guarantee, which is a lifetime warranty. So the kind of got down the rabbit hole there, but why an LPVO? So LPVOs give you that close-up capability of a 1-power, kind of like a red dot. They can be just as fast as red dots realistically. If you're training just as hard for your red dot as you are your LPVO, you can do just as fast splits. I'm not going to get out and shoot a ton of splits on this thing. As far as time metrics goes, I don't have two identical rifles to compare it with, so I don't know that that's fair to compare. We did most of the testing with my 16-inch Recce 16 right here. That is a enhanced lightweight profile barrel. It's cold hammer forged, chrome lined. The FN we did most of the testing with for the Tango-MSR is an 18-inch chrome lined, the M16 profile, I believe it's called. But there's already some differences there. To get into red dot versus LPVO, the next most popular setup for a little bit more distance is going to be a red dot magnifier. The advantages of a red dot magnifier, you can't take off the magnification capabilities of an LPVO just to make it lighter. With most red dot magnifier combos on the market now, they either have a QD or a simple nut or a screw or something. You can just pop that magnifier off. Those magnifiers aren't going to impact your zero. They just give you magnification of the red dot you already have. So that, for a home defense kind of role, a red dot is going to give you a little bit kind of a pro there of being able to take that off to reduce the weight. That being said, when you put that magnifier on, you don't get a different reticle. You don't get an etched reticle. You don't get typically more than 3-power magnification. Some companies are getting into 5-power-ish magnifiers. There's some 6s and 7s out there, but most are going to be 3-power. To not spend an arm and a leg to get those high-power magnifiers, you're really looking at Amazon, eBay, special kind of stuff. I ran one of the $69.99 2 to 5 power magnifiers, and it was kind of junk, to be honest. I mainly did it to kind of see if I liked it, and I found out in the long run it ended up being a waste of $70, and didn't really change my mind whether or not I wanted to run a magnifier. My 13.7 has the HS512C and the Holosun 3X magnifier, so I'm not going to say that LPVOs are the end-all be-all. I do have 3 of them now. I have the Tango-MSR on the SCAR currently for our testing. I have the Hawk Frontier 1-6, which is on the Recce. And then I also have the Ride-On 1-8. It's the X3 Tactics. I'm a big fan of the Hawk and the Ride-On. End of the day, I'm going to choose that guy right there. So the Hawk has better turrets. You have locking turrets. You have resettable turrets. A little bit better glass quality, and you see the scope a little bit less. I'm not 100% sure how to put that. Not necessarily scope shadow, but the thinness of the housing of the scope. Kind of a pro of some of the vortexes is it's basically a thin line around the outside of the magnified reticle. The Tango-MSR does have scope caps with it. You do see it a little bit. I think it gives you a little bit more, I guess, less of a heads up of your field of view when you add in that scope cap, but that's going to kind of go either way. Really say anything with a scope cap is going to get bigger and more of a block to your view. At the end of the day, I do like an LPVO over a red dot magnifier. If you're going to shoot further and you want a BDC, most red dots, you're not going to get any kind of BDC. LPVOs, a lot of them are going to have some sort of BDC. And again, that's going to go into preference. If you just want a crosshair with a simple dot, there's plenty of optics on the market that do that. There's also plenty of optics that are either first focal plane or second focal plane. Not going to get into first focal plane versus second focal plane, pros, cons, whatnot. Typically for your 1 to 4, 1 to 6, 1 to 8, a simple second focal plane is going to do just fine. With a 1 to 10, you might see more benefit to having a first focal plane, mainly for your drop and for measuring targets at range. Basic description of the scope: you get a second focal plane, 1 to 6 by 24. It's got a 30 millimeter tube, comes with a mount. It is, going from a cheap sheet real quick, weighs 18.5 ounces. It's 10.4 inches long. You get 3.74 to 3.93 inches of eye relief. It's got 100 MOA of travel. The scope is around $300. This one, we saw them at Swamp Yankee Arms for $299 with the mount. It comes with the mount. Does not come mounted. It comes in the box with the scope and the mount separate. So it's also illuminated. You get 11 levels of illumination, which I think at the lower powers in the dark you can definitely see it on 1 and 2. The higher levels are definitely closer to that daylight bright criteria some people are looking for. Typically you need the daylight bright more so for a first focal plane. A second focal plane, there's a little bit more reticle. It's a lot harder to miss the reticle with it not changing size. But the illumination is just the dot and the horseshoe. It is the SIG's BDC6 reticle. Sorry to bounce around on you guys a little bit, but the turrets are non-resettable. The Hawk and a lot of the other products on the market, you're going to get resettable turrets, which is nice if you're going to shoot different kinds of ammo, if you're going to zero to different ranges, or if you're going to swap it out for different guns. The Hawk, you set your zero, and then you unscrew the top, and you can turn the turret back to 0 so you know exactly where your 0 is. Then say if I put that Hawk on the Scar, and I have to adjust my 0, I can adjust it for the Scar, write down whatever the numbers are for the Scar, and then just go back to the 0. As long as you know how many turns, you just go back to 0 for when it goes back to the original donor, you could say. Same thing goes for different ammo. The reticle itself, you're going to have a center dot with a horseshoe. You have windage marks for potentially a moving target. Tried to do some ballistics with the reticle. The reticle lines, although it is a BDC type reticle, don't really make sense. Every scope I looked into and every reticle I looked into for SIG, they're all zeroed at 100 yards or 100 meters. The punched in the numbers for a 16-inch AR, which is kind of your most common 16-inch AR with M855 ammo, doing 2975 feet per second. Punched in the mount height, the velocity, all that stuff, and the ranges are kind of vague. So the lines below the dot, I'm getting 325 yards, 430 yards, 530 yards, 600, 680, and 755. That is what I got for my quick calculations. I don't have that long of a range to really test out and see, but I'm not real sure what SIG was going for with the BDC and the oddball ranges. I tried plugging in a 20-inch rifle. I tried doing a 12.5. I tried doing a 10.5. I tried doing a 55 grain ball and changing velocities, that kind of stuff. Couldn't really seem to get a huge fix on those lines. I also tried 50 yards, 25 yards, and 200 yards for the center dot reticle, or for the 0. Didn't get any great numbers. We're looking at 337 for the 50 yard, the 25 yard, the second line puts you at 405, the 200 yards puts you at 376. They're just, it's all over the place. So not 100% sure, someone might know something better than I do, but looking into the reticles, did some more deeper digging. They don't even have the manual for the Tango-MSR on their site yet. I did go through the manual, I have the box with the manual, but couldn't really get anything good on that. And the other reticles, like the reticles for the Tango 6T, are very much so broken down in those manuals on zero range and all that. The Tango-MSR has no guidelines. It basically tells you to bore sight it and then zero it. That's it. Getting deeper into the turrets, you do get nice little lines. The clicks are very audible. That being said, you can't re-zero it. The other thing I really ran into is, although they're very audible, they're not very tactile. There's not, a set, really a notch that you feel like, okay, that was one click. You get a click by sound, and they're pretty close together, but at the same time, that's all you get. They are cap turrets. The illumination is on the other side, the left side, with the this is also going to be your battery cap, so you unscrew this guy. It's a CR2032 battery, which it does come with. Then you have 11 settings. There's no off in between, so you really have to go back to 0 to turn it off. Not a huge fan. I like some of the optics that you can kind of shut off in between, because then you can leave it back on. That being said, you just turn it a half turn and you're ballpark on, and it is definitely visible at the middle setting, so 5, 6, 7 are all usable. Includes a throw lever. The throw lever I Loctited before we started. I just did blue Loctite, but that being said, after the drop test, it was loose. I'm gonna re-Loctite again, and hopefully that'll hold on to it, but wasn't degreased prior to, so it could be that. The zoom, so you have 1 to 6. The adjustment is kind of, I wouldn't say it's not smooth. It's definitely smooth, but it's a little stiffer than some of the other scopes. The right-on is kind of in that ballpark for stiffness. The Hawk is definitely a little bit lighter, easier to turn, but that one also doesn't have a throw lever, so that could be part of it, maybe why. And then the last thing to really touch on from the outside is the mount. You get a mount with it. It's kind of cool. You do get the torque specs on it. It's kind of just lazy. It's not hard to just put those specs in the manual. That being said, it's nice that they're on there, so you don't have to look them up. You have the 65 inch-pounds for the rail mount, or to mount the base, and then 2 5 inch-pounds for the torque screws for the rings. It does come with Sig's, I think they call them lay flat or something along those lines, caps. They are pretty snappy, snap open, and then they fold out of the way, so it's not kind of sitting out wide open, which again is a personal preference. Doesn't really do anything special for me, but it is kind of nice that they fold out of the way. They are kind of bulky, so with this one, there's no good way to really put this on here for the Scar. You kind of have to fight with it to get it in a good spot. The Scar comes with nice irons. I'm not going to take the irons off, especially when the front iron is built into the gas block. But so I'm not going to get rid of the irons. Yes, you could beat it with, say, a 1.7 mount. If you got a little bit higher, it would clear most of those mounts. These are a little bit bulkier, especially with the adjustment knobs on the rear sight. But that being said, it's kind of going to be a personal preference thing on what iron, if you run backup iron sights, which I do recommend, and then what height they are, what kind they are. And you can obviously always change out the mount, but for a budget-minded, I don't think someone's going to buy the scope for $300. It comes with a mount, and then drop another $100 or $200 on a mount when they already only paid $300. The box, like I mentioned, it comes with foam to hold the scope, but the scope itself is not mounted. It kind of has some of the features, and you get a basic view of the reticle. I am going to throw up a picture of the reticle right now. Hopefully inlay it while I'm talking here in the background. So here is the Tango-MSR with the 100-yard target we used for most of the shooting. Now here is the Hawk at 100 yards again. And then third, this is going to be a Viper PST, same distance. The other two were shot the other day with kind of crappy weather. The Tango-MSR was today, so it's a little bit clearer, so might do a little bit difference, but you can make out the reticle pretty well. The dot itself doesn't obscure too much of the target. The orange dots on the target were about 2 inches-ish, inch and a half, something like that. So you can definitely get decent shots on it. Was able to put up just over sub-MOA groups with the arm score match ammo we used with the SCAR. That being said, with a little bit more magnification, I think you can do a little bit better groups. That's not to say that you can't shoot sub-MOA with iron sights. My eyes aren't good enough to do that, so I'm going to kind of use the magnification as a little bit of a crutch, which I know a lot of people are. Which, again, is part of why probably a lot of people are going to be looking for a 1:6, 1:8, 1:10, rather than a red dot magnifier. Sorry for getting down the rabbit hole there again on you guys. But in the box, you get the scope, you get the mount, comes with a nice little cleaning cloth, a Sig Sauer sticker, a Allen key, sorry, not an Allen key, a Torx key for the screws, which you should be using a torque wrench to install this. That being said, it's nice to have it in the odd chance it does come loose. I didn't Loctite it. The screws didn't come loose as far as I know. I haven't checked the torque on them. But the scope itself hasn't come loose. We haven't had like a wandering zero, with the exception of the first day into the third day. We did have a weird zero shift there. Also comes with the battery, and then as I mentioned before, the scope does not come on the mount. Sig, I do like they give you this line to kind of line up. That being said, if that line is off by a tiny bit, you won't be level. I'm not 100% sure how the line is supposed to line up, because I had it where I thought it, was pretty close. I've had it directly on top of and directly in line with the top of the mount, and neither of those were level. I did level it using a level on a rifle that was verified to be level. But that being said, you should really just use a level to just do it right the first time and not fight it. Next up, glass quality. I think the glass is decent. It's not anything crazy. It's not $1,000 glass. I think the Hawk definitely has a little bit better glass. I think you are a little bit closer to the Rite-On. The Rite-On X3 Tactics, again, is a $550 scope for just the scope, not including the mount. So about double the price. Again, when you're talking $300, double the price isn't a huge difference. You can do, again, $3,000 in LPVOs, i.e. the Vortex Razor HD Gen 3 1 to 10. It's $2,800. Now you can find them for a better price, but again, to put it out there, you can absolutely spend 10 times the amount you do on this SIG for another LPVO. For the glass quality though, you do get a little bit of like a fisheye, and trying to throw up the reticle again here. If you look, you kind of have the points on the outside and the bottom. Outside those points, you start to get a little bit of a fisheye. It's not something you notice shooting it slowly or at range so much. When you start moving around and going from target to target to do target transitions, you do notice it there. But again, it's for the most part outside the normal used part of the reticle, but it can be kind of frustrating if you're shooting target transitions, that kind of stuff. So as far as holding zero, we did have a weird shift. The first day, I zeroed everything, got everything sighted in, and then I had to run into the shop, and by the time I was done at the shop, we ran out of light. Then got sick for a couple days, came up again. The only real change we had was a change in temperature, and I am shooting in the woods. We kind of have a mountain around us, and we're shooting on top of a hill, kind of. But for that matter, there isn't a ton of open space, so it's not like we're getting a ton of wind, and even at that 10-mile-an-hour wind at 100 yards for 5.56 is like a 1/10 of an inch. We had probably a 2 to 3 inch shift to the left. I did verify that, and now when we sighted it in, it was with Armscore M855. I went and shot with Winchester M855 and the PMC X-Tac M855. Both of those still grouped in the same spot, about 2.5 inches, 3 inches to the left. So I don't think it was an ammo thing. I'm not 100% sure what it was, but there was no huge bump, or I didn't drop the rifle or anything, didn't throw the rifle at that point, so I don't know what happened there. But again, it still held fine at that shift to the left, but I don't really know what happened. May have just been me. But we got it re-zeroed, tested that out with the ammo again, and didn't have any huge issues. We did shoot a couple drills, and I'll drop a couple of those videos here after this. But so the drill we shot was a 50-yard and 100-yard shot. We used a barricade with 4 positions on the barricade and then prone beside the barricade. Shot 1 shot from each position on a silhouette at 50 yards, and then 1 shot on a reduced IPSC, I think it's a 1/3 size at steel plate at 100 yards. We ran all the groups with the BCM, and then when we shifted to the Aero, the third group, the third run with the Aero, it took me like 25 shots to complete the drill, which the normal average was somewhere around 12 to 14 shots. That one took me 25 shots, and then after we kind of stopped, paused, and figured out what was going on, I realized the plate itself was crooked. We went down and checked out the plate, and the bolt that holds the plate to the mount, we had shot off the head of the bolt. So the plate didn't make it through the testing, so that kind of killed a little bit of our timing. I did reset it, and we got another couple runs. Ended up doing a little bit better time with the BCM. I don't know if that's a performance thing or a proficiency thing with the BCM. That being said, that is when we also noticed that the zero had shifted. I didn't confirm the zero at the beginning of the day. I was just trying to run through and had no reason to think that the zero wouldn't be the same. So, kind of on me. That being said, was all getting pretty consistent hits. All of the group, again, on the plate was to the left. So I don't know if that swayed things too much. The next two, I shot the right side, aimed for the right area of the plate and did okay with it. But it actually ended up averaging a little bit less shots to throw out the... We did throw out the group that took 25, and then it ended up actually being less shots to put all the hits on the plate with the Aero, but the times were a little bit slower. That could have been part of me having to adjust a little bit for the plate. All in all, I hadn't shot that drill before, so could be a proficiency thing again with that drill, but realistically, I think you should change up your drills. If you shoot the same drill every time, I think you're just doing it for times and Instagram fame and YouTube fame. That being said, that doesn't mean you can't be good at the drills you do shoot. I like changing up the drills once in a while, kind of keep things fresh. I think it makes you and myself a better shooter overall. But it kind of did skew the data a little bit. And then when we did a little bit of the abuse test on the SCAR, and then the plate finally did cease to hold itself up, so didn't get to shoot for times with the SCAR. Realistically, I think it would have been pretty similar. I think weight-wise, they're kind of similar. You do get a little bit more weight through 308, but the SCAR itself is only 8 pounds. But end of the day, the testing of the scope is what we were going for. So I don't know that my testing or testing me as a shooter really has too much of a play on it. But realistically, for the money, I think for $300, I think it's a solid scope. You get some nice features, you get illumination, you get a BDC reticle, whether or not it's accurate for your drop. You're going to have to go shoot it for your gun anyway, and that's true for most any rifle. If you don't have the exact setup that they use to set that reticle, it's not going to be 100% on for you, so you should always true your data anyway. That being said, currently I have about 100 to 150 yards to work with for our range. So at the end of the day, I don't need that BDC yet. I am looking for places to shoot longer, just as the time being with the shop and my other job, it's a little busy. Don't have time to get out and shoot that far. Realistically, Connecticut doesn't have a ton of places. You have to be a member of a private range to basically get more than that, unless you know the oddball citizen that has a ton of land, that has a bunch of open land, which again, we're in the Northeast, i.e. New England. It's mountainy, it's hilly, unless it's a farm or some sort of like quarry or something along those lines. You don't get that long of distance. So out in the Midwest, sure, maybe you know, concentrate on a little bit higher of a powered optic. So maybe a 2 to 10, maybe a 2.5 to 15. But that's going to be your purpose, and I can't dictate that for you. You have to figure out what's right for you. All in all, I think it's a decent scope. I'm definitely going to recommend it to customers who that's their budget. Can you get better? Yes. Do you have to spend more money to get a better scope? I think so. Realistically, you probably do. But all in all, this was the Sig Tango-MSR. It would really help me out if you guys gave me some likes, subscribes, comment on it. Let me know what I can do better. Let me know what you'd like to see in the future. There will be a review coming of this guy. Probably going to do a review of the BCM, some more handguns. My brother-in-law has a Noveski build going on, so we might come out and see if we can steal that off of him and shoot it a little bit and see how the $3,000 worth of an AR performs. And we're definitely going to compare it against that guy, which is half the price, and I think just as good bang for buck. Actually better bang for buck because it's half the price. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more videos. Thanks. So, I know some of you are here for the torture test. Swank Yankee Arms has been kind enough to give us a scope. And I think his words were, beat the shit out of it. So, do a couple drop tests. I'm going to sight it on the scar first, do a couple drop tests, then shoot a good bunch and see if we hold zero. Alright, so got her done in 3 shots. So we're sighted in for M80 ball. Chamber is clear. No mag. I'm going to drop the bolt just so we don't get too much junk in there. Alright. And about shoulder height. Shoot it. Going hot again. There it drops. Everything feels stable. We go for the head again. So I did just check the rifle. The brake is a little bit loose. We had took it off to shoot it with a can, and then it was put back on. I'm not sure if it was 100% torque to spec, but it was definitely tight. That could be a heat thing, or it could be just getting back around from the drop test. The brake did come a little bit loose, so I'm not going to be super worried if we're not 100% on. We're also using M80 ball, so mil spec, 147 grain from Winchester. But let's look at the groups. Alright, so this is my 3-shot group from sighting it in with M80 ball. And now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15. And probably one of those is number 16. And I guess 17. But pretty close. Might be a little bit of shift, might be a little bit low. That might just be me. But 4 drops from about shoulder height. And a little bit of abuse from the scar. So we're all over the place, shooting different groups, different ammo. I'll take it. So, conclusion. Now, this is no longevity test. This is a couple hundred rounds. We're probably at 200 rounds of 5.56 and 120, 130 rounds of 308. Scar right now is reciprocating. It is a non-reciprocating charging handle model, but we have it set up to reciprocate right now. More on that later when I do the Scar review. The performance out of the optic, I'd say we're pretty much on par with what I would expect out of a $300 scope. At the same time, it is from Sig. I think we have pretty good glass quality. There's a little bit of a fisheye to it. The clicks are very audible but not very tactile. The hawk and the right-on are much clearer, much more noticeable, feelable clicks. But for 300 bucks for an LPVO that's a 1:6, not a 1:4, 1:6 with a mount, with the warranty on it is Sig's Infinite guarantee, which is lifetime, fully transferable, no receipt required. That's on the mechanical, glass, all that kind of stuff. The electronics are a 5-year warranty, which I don't think is bad. Realistically, if you're gonna have something electrical go wrong on something like that, I would think it's probably gonna go in the beginning. Eventually gonna go. But for the little bit of abuse we've given it, I'm pretty satisfied. So I think this one is going to go to a friend of mine. He was interested in one. In the meantime, until he gets it, it's probably gonna stay on the Scar. So if something changes in the near future, then I will update you guys with that. But for now, it's gonna stay on there. Might actually go to the 18, but we'll see.